Don't seek yourself in the mind. You might be tempted to think that you must learn about all the different ways the mind works before you can disidentify from it. But just like studying about madness cannot ensure your sanity, studying the mind will not ensure that you stop identifying from the egoic mind. The problem of the mind cannot be solved on the level of the mind. Once you have understood the basic dysfunction, there isn't really much else that you need to learn or understand. Now, something worth remembering is that the ego's needs are endless. It feels vulnerable and threatened, and so lives in a state of fear and want. Once you know how the basic dysfunction operates, there is no need to explore all its countless manifestations deeply. No need to make it into a complex personal problem. Obviously, the ego would love to do that because of its very nature. It is always seeking for something to attach itself to in order to uphold and strengthen its illusory sense of self, and it will readily attach itself to your problems. This is why, for so many people, a large part of their sense of self is intimately connected with their problems. Once this has happened, the last thing they want to do is to become free of them, because for the ego, it would literally mean losing yourself. And the illusion of time. Time and mind are inseparable. Remove time from the mind and it stops, of course, other than when you're using it. To be identified with your mind is to be trapped in time, meaning the compulsion to live almost exclusively through memory and anticipation. This creates an endless preoccupation with past and future, and an unwillingness to honor and acknowledge the present moment and allow it to be. The compulsion arises because the past gives you an identity and the future holds the promise of salvation or fulfillment in whatever form. Both of these are illusions. Now, one may ask that without the sense of time, how would we function in the society? The implication being that time is precious and thinking about the past and the future is important. Well, not that it isn't, but the past is gone and the future isn't here yet. When you had the past, it wasn't the past, it was the present. And similarly, when you will have the future, it will no longer be the future, it will be the present. No matter which point you are in, what you really and actually have is the present moment. The key to the spiritual dimension. In life-threatening emergency situations, the shift in consciousness from time to presence sometimes happens naturally. Anyone who has gone through some immediate crisis or danger knows that. The reason why some people love to engage in dangerous activities such as mountain climbing, car racing, and so on, although they may not be aware of it, is because it forces them into the now. It forces them into the intensely alive state that is free of time, free of problems, free of thinking, and even free of the burden of the personality. At other moments, slipping away from the present moment even for a second may literally seem like death. And so, unfortunately, they come to depend on a particular activity to be in that state. Since ancient times, spiritual masters of all traditions have pointed to the now as the key to the spiritual dimension. The whole essence of Zen consists in walking along the razor's edge of now, to be so utterly, completely present that no problem, no suffering, nothing that is not who you are in your essence can survive in you. In the absence of time, all your problems dissolve. As the author says, suffering needs time. It cannot survive in the now. Some of the great Zen masters, in order to take their students' attention away from time, would often raise their finger and slowly ask, "What at this moment is lacking?" A powerful question that does not require an answer on the level of the mind. It is designed to take your attention deeply into the now. A similar question in the Zen tradition is, if not now, when? Meister Eckhart, a 13th century spiritual teacher, summed it all up as follows. Time is what keeps the light from reaching us. There is no greater obstacle to God than time. Letting go of psychological time. It is best to use time only in the practical aspects of your life. Let's call this kind of time clock time. But when the practical matters have been dealt with, you must immediately withdraw to the present moment. In this way, there will be no buildup of psychological time, which is identification with the past and continuous compulsive projection into the future. Clock time is not just making an appointment or planning a trip. It includes learning from the past so that we don't repeat the same mistakes, setting goals and working towards them, predicting the future by means of patterns and laws from the past, and taking appropriate action on the basis of our predictions. But even here, within the sphere of practical living, where we cannot do without reference to past and future, the present moment remains the essential factor. Because any lesson from the past becomes relevant and is applied in the present moment. Any planning as well as working towards achieving a particular goal is done now. The enlightened person's main focus of attention is always the now, but on the periphery they are still aware of time. In other words, they continue to use clock time but are free of psychological time. It is important to be alert as you practice this so that you do not unwittingly transform clock time into psychological time. For example, if you made a mistake in the past and learn from it now, you are using clock time. On the other hand, if you dwell on it mentally and, as a result, self-criticism, remorse, or guilt come up, then you are making a mistake. You are making it a part of your sense of self and it will become psychological time, which is always linked to a false sense of identity. Similarly, non-forgiveness also implies a heavy burden of psychological time.